Hi everyone, I'm Gary Null. I'd like to say hello to all of you who are listening to this program for the first time, for all the dozens and dozens of stations carrying this and have for years, for decades, and for just everyone sharing the information. That's what this is about, empowering people by giving them what we believe are the facts. Today, for example, from the University of New South Wales, which is in Australia, a peer-reviewed article about how the omega-3 fatty acids can help decrease the incidence of Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's almost always shows with dementia a deficiency of the omega-3 fatty acids. So if you have mild cognitive impairment, the omega-3 could be one of the reasons that you're deficient, and therefore take more of them and have your cognition in a healthy way. We have a lot to share on health today, but also today we're going to have a guest. My guest is Elizabeth Glass, and she is a progressive candidate running for the New York State Senate seat in District 27 in Manhattan. That includes East and West Villages, Stuyvesant Town, Chelsea, Hell's Kitchen, Times Square, parts of Midtown. The only reason I'm having her on is, you know, I never had politicians on my show. I've had 4 in 50 years. It's because I don't like them. I don't believe them. I don't trust them. There are exceptions. I'm not saying every single politician is there just, to gain power. And there are some that I believe were doing the right thing. But then you have Tulsi, who turned around and endorsed Biden. And instead of suggesting that maybe we should start endorsing third-party candidates, that the rest of us, the real progressives, have been supporting clear back with Ralph Nader, and break up this duopoly that we now have, Democrats and Republicans, corrupt to the core. And the reason I'm having her on is because she is giving us her word, and I would not have her on if she did not give the word to go in there and defend your rights to have an exemption from vaccination. That is the only reason I'm bringing her on, just so you know, just so she knows. And I don't trust and I don't believe any politician, because I've seen so many lie to me. Ted Kennedy, I won't go into what we discussed in his kitchen, but I've met with politicians who I believed represented the public's interests and didn't. They're master manipulators. So I'm really concerned that New York State, one of the most corrupt places on earth, everyone I would not have a conversation with, because I know that they wouldn't change. They're going to do exactly what people who put money in their pocket tell them to do, or they have some ideological agenda. But the truth doesn't seem to be up on anyone's scale. So we're going to ask Elizabeth today, are you willing to tell this audience that if elected, you will go against G5. You will go against mandatory vaccines. You will go against the governor and lead demonstrations to stop the mandatory COVID virus vaccine implementation in New York State. If their answer is no, it's a very short interview. You'll be gone in about 60 seconds. If it's yes, then you've got our attention. Be that rare, exceptional, almost unheard of politician that's actually a human being. I cannot tell you the contempt I have for our entire political process, every government agency, state, local, federal, the council, the mayors, the governors. They're all human, in my opinion. Okay? Do you get the message? Yes, you know, if you've listened to me, I'm going to tell it like it is, and if people can't handle it, go listen to Howard Stern or someone else. Okay? So that's going to be a part of our program. But I'm also going to challenge today the entire wireless communication industry. Thus far in the last week, I've challenged Wikipedia and Merck yesterday, the largest pharmaceutical company in the United States. And today we're taking on all those people who are pathological liars, telling you that 5G is just so cool. Watch the commercials. No, it's deadly. So we're going to take that on today as well. And I'm going to take on the NBC affiliate because they had the resources, know better than the broadcasting they did. You're going to see and hear the broadcast yourself. It's 5 minutes long. Innocent people in a small community in Northern California simply don't want 5G. So what happens? A reporter doing the right thing, right? She interviews people who are all pro 5G and then throws in, well, we need more research. No, we don't. So someone in this audience, send this reporter today's program, at least that segment, and ask her, does she have the courage to go against the 5G industry by telling the facts? We will share all the facts with her. Also, I have a few other things I'm going to get to today. And we're going to start to peel back some of the lies and deceptions about this coronavirus that we've been told. It is real. It does kill vulnerable people, but no more so than the common flu. So today, more medical doctors speaking out. That's our program. And we always begin with the latest on health and healing. And for that, we should be taking more of the omega-3 fatty acids. And this is important because, according to this study, quote, plasma fatty acids have been reported to be dysregulated in mild cognitive impairment in Alzheimer's disease. And so they simply looked and found that people suffering from Alzheimer's or impairment of their mind were almost all deficient in the omega-3 fatty acids. So simply start taking omega-3 fatty acids. Also, I've been mentioning a lot lately about the power of exercise at all ages. In fact, the older you get, the more important that exercise becomes. Stanford University Medical Center just published an article, and it's a scientific article. It's entitled Molecular Effects of Exercise. And a simple blood test may be able to determine how physically fit you are, according to this new study. The test could complement treadmill test, a more traditional clinical evaluation of fitness, and provide individuals with far more nuanced information about their body's molecular response to exercise. The blood test is an offshoot of a complex study conducted by a team of researchers that took hundreds of thousands of molecular measurements from a group of individuals before and after exercising. According to a Dr. Michael Snyder, professor and chair of genetics, he said, everybody knows exercise is good for you, but we really don't know what drives that at a molecular level. Our goal at the outset was to conduct a highly comprehensive analysis of what's happening in the body just after exercising. So the team tracked molecular markers of a wide array of biological processes like metabolism, immunity, oxidative stress, and cardiovascular function. Hundreds of thousands of measurements from the 36 study participants provided a window into the sea of chemical fluctuations the body experiences during intense exercise. And to the scientists' knowledge, such comprehensive measurements of post-exercise have not been done. And so they were very excited by this. And it shows that, and this was published in the peer-reviewed journal Cell, that there is now, an understanding that when you're exercising, the molecules in your body are asserting their peak capacity to allow you to maintain aerobic fitness. Now, I'm glad they did this study, and good for them. It's a good study. And if people can take a simple blood test, and that helps determine their level of internal fitness, excellent. Now let's go back to what was his name? Dr. Asha. He was from Israel. He was one of Israel's leading physiologists and experts. And he asked, would a group of the Natural Living Running Walking Club come to his laboratory and clinical office and do a series of studies? And we did. Now we're talking about 1973, 74, 75. And what he determined was, now this goes back 45 years. He determined that the amount of oxidative stress, meaning free radicals, that are created when you exercise, and we were doing it on a treadmill at the steepest elevation for up to 2 hours. That's a hell of a workout. In fact, one of the treadmills broke down, brand new treadmill, because we He said the average person could do about 8 minutes. We did 2 hours. And then I explained to him that why we call it the natural living running and walking club is because we take a different approach. We just don't go out there and look for elite athletes and then just pound the pavement and get as many wins as possible. We work with just average, normal people, but in time, after 6 months to a year, they become elite athletes. We've won thousands of races, thousands. I alone have won over 500. Sam Skinner and Sid Howard, Thelma Wilson, and Louise Nottage together, probably 3,000 just us, and we had thousands of other people who did not as much, but still phenomenal. And he wanted to know why. And he wanted to know why we could keep doing it year after year after year. And I said, because we understand that when you're exercising, you're creating free radicals. The free radicals then create inflammation. The inflammation then, whether the inflammation manifests as a cytokine or tumor necrosis factor alpha or prostaglandin, whatever, it hurts the cell. Now, let's say that for argument's sake, you have 75 trillion cells. Some will have more, some will have less. But we now can say that each cell is adversely affected based upon our lifestyle about 10,000 times a day. That means that you have 10,000 gene alterations per cell per day. So therefore, if you're matching your chronological age, let's say you're 30, but you've been doing a lot of exercise, but you have not been complementing the adverse effects of the exercise. So now you're not 30. Your legs, your muscles, are more like they're 60. And so what we did is we would take the antioxidants like coenzyme Q10, magnesium, vitamin C, cayenne, potassium, L-carnitine, and other nutrients before the exercise, and then after the exercise, take it again. And what would happen was you would get the benefits of the exercise, but none of the premature aging. So it's what I call the laws of compensation. To the degree that you have any imbalance, whether it's emotional, genetic, trauma, viral, bacteria, you must exceed that on the other side. Meaning, I'll give you a simpler example. Let's say you're an average person. You eat your hot dogs, hamburgers, French fries, steaks, fried food, and you do it for 40 years. And then one day, out of the clear blue, you have your swelling in the ankles, your blood sugar is way up, and you have high blood pressure. And initially, people will take a look at you and say, well, it's not unusual for your age. And so here's some medicine to control your blood sugar, medicine for your high blood pressure, medicine, COX-2 inhibitors for your pain. Rare would be the physician that would say, the reason that your body is now tipping into advanced clinical disease instead of subclinical, meaning you didn't know you had the cancer, but for 30 years you were feeding it until it was large enough by feeding it until it manifested as a tumor. You didn't know your artery was being clogged for 40 years because, well, you didn't feel it, you didn't see it until your heart attack. So to help that person, and I have a lot of experiences with this, with tens and tens of thousands of people, individually, plus all the thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of clinical studies and health support groups, you have to exceed it. Just like this anti-aging study, one of the hallmarks of this anti-aging study was most people would have 1 glass of juice a day. We were having 12 to 15 glasses of juice a day, every day. And the average person won't fast. In the evening, they eat. We didn't every day. We fasted from our last meal until about 9, 10 o'clock next morning. 14, 15-hour fast, and then fasting on Saturdays and most of Sunday. All of this helps compensate. When you're giving yourself 20,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and we'll just use that as an example, or 1,000 units of magnesium, you're immediately helping your heart and your muscles and your immune system. But what if you only took 100 milligrams of vitamin C? Your doctor says, have a glass of orange juice. Well, that's 35 milligrams of vitamin C. To really help yourself, you would have to have 400 oranges in a day. Well, of course, nobody can have that. So you could take some vitamin C. But if they don't know the science, if they don't have the clinical experience, they're not going to be able to give you that advice. And unfortunately, we have a monotheistic medical model. All medical paradigms are monotheistic. You just won't find, unless a person has, in effect, left orthodox medicine, as Martin Feldman and others have done, and practiced alternative or complementary medicine, you wouldn't have the experience. You wouldn't see that your patients used to be able not to reverse any disease, and now you're reversing all kinds of disease, and nobody inside your old medical groups want to hear about this because people don't believe in outside concepts. They have one theory of life, one reality, one truth. If you're a Democrat, then everything else is wrong. If you're Jewish or Christian or whatever, all other religions are not important to you. Your only truths come from what you've embraced. So imagine the hardest part of getting a person healthy is not reversing disease. To me, that is easy. The easiest thing I've ever done professionally is help people reverse or improve their conditions. The most difficult thing is getting a person to change their perception. Because at the end of the day, my mom didn't die at 3 o'clock in the morning from a heart attack, and she was taking synthetic hormone replacement therapy, and that's one of the side effects. My dad didn't die of stomach cancer. My older brother didn't die of lung and stomach cancer and a stroke. No, that's not what killed them. No, what killed them was their belief systems. Because that's the one thing we don't challenge. Because it's the one thing we rely upon for all of our truths, for our security, for our certainties. So if you want to talk about the most deadly thing on earth, it is not the atomic bomb. It's sure as hell not this coronavirus. It's your belief systems. And every day you'll see those belief systems. Think of all those people going to work on Wall Street every day, the hedge funds, the equity partners, the vulture capitalists. And think of the people who won't think twice about outsourcing a factory that had been there for 100 years and dislodge, let's say, 500 people who had a good quality of life, a good standard of living, and now they have nothing. Is there any sense of remorse? Any sense of empathy? Not on Wall Street, no. No, name me the last time anyone died of a heart attack on Wall Street. How about never? Because you have to have a heart to die of a heart attack. And those clowns, those people that I have no respect for at all, from anyone at all working, and don't give me this nonsense that somehow you're innocent, you're just a secretary there, you're just doing your job. We've heard that before. I was just following my orders. I was thinking about this morning with the Armenian genocide. Wow. People thought all those pictures, I'm sure you've seen a picture of it. It looks like it's fake. It looks like someone photoshopped all these naked women on crosses being crucified. That's not a fake picture. That's a real picture. Who made the crosses? Who drove in the nails? Who led million and a half more people into their death? Who's killing people in Yemen? Who killed people and displaced people with munitions? Who worked in the factory that made depleted uranium that's in all the bombs we've used in the last 25 years? You see, when you start breaking it down and deconstructing the arguments people make, everybody is complicit. So at some point, we just have to realize that the reason people can live in denial of their responsibility for anything, themselves or the world we live in, our neighborhood or anything else, is because their belief system doesn't allow but one belief, one truth, one reality. Even if it kills you, you'll continue to accept it. So when we're talking about anything, including disease, and when I was talking with this Dr. Asa, that was what his name, Kalsa, what the heck was his first name? ASA was his last name. And he probably came around 50 times. He even came up to Grosinger, some of the retreats. He didn't understand it. He just couldn't wrap that into his very intellectual mind. Very smart, MD, PhD. But he couldn't wrap it around how everything you needed to keep healthy was already in you. And all you had to do is liberate it and stop suppressing it. So when you use compensation factors, you're compensating for something that's wrong by only doing that which is right, and you put all your energy into doing what is right, whether it's the right attitude, right energy, Smiles when you would otherwise frown, hope when you would otherwise despair, forgiveness when you would otherwise hold someone or something in contempt, openness instead of jealousy, freedom instead of the conformity of rituals. And he couldn't understand it. And he said, driving back from Grosvenor's Way, he said, I don't understand. I see it in these people. And I said, well, you're looking for a mathematical model. You're looking for a Newtonian linear way of understanding something that the entire medical and physiological societies are not prepared for, and that is that everything in life is an exchange of energy. When you smile at someone, you're sharing a positive energy. When you frown, you're sharing a negative energy. When you're imbued with hope, you have a positive energy. When you're feeling uncertain, insecure, you have a negative energy. Both of those energies will manifest something in the body. The positive energy, something positive, the negative energy, something negative. So if we're running marathons, we're running races, and we're doing as much as 100 miles of training per week on the road, and that's just on the road, and we're not getting our immune systems, as you saw from the blood workups. We all had to have our blood workup done with the immune system. I mean, very comprehensive. And he said, your immune system should have been crashed. They should have, but they're not because of compensation. So it's called the laws of compensation. I'll go into it in greater depth in an upcoming lecture. I'm going to do a webinar on this. In any case, that's what these people at Stanford were trying to find out, and they took a look at it. And it was just one little study to them, but they opened a door, and good for them, 45 years after we did. But hey, they're the establishment, we're not. I'm glad they did it. Also, University of Eastern Finland did a study and showed that dietary and physical activity intervention reduced the LDL cholesterol levels in children. This was published in the European Journal of Nutrition. It's simply this. Remember when you and I, the young boys and girls in this audience, would go out in the 1950s and 60s, and we'd play and we'd run and we'd wrestle and we'd do all the things that kids should do, and we'd come home. We were lean, we were strong, we were energetic for the most part. Well, that kept us with a healthy cholesterol level, and that is why many of you are alive today. Today's kids, they're not going outside. Parent can be arrested, children taken away if you let your child walk to school more than a few blocks. Wow. You see how we normalize and then standardize that which should never be normal or standard? So kids today are obese. They have adult diabetes. They have heart disease. They have cancers. They have arthritis before they're 9 years old. And we think that's normal. The findings of the physical activity and nutrition in children study, which is still ongoing at the University of Eastern Finland, is a 2-year follow-up study, and it's as simple. Go out and exercise. Eat a healthy diet. Eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Eat a plant-based diet. That's what it's saying. So that's good news. And finally, from the University of Colorado, extra choline, choline, may help prevent women who are pregnant with having adverse effects of the COVID-19 on their newborns. So pregnant women who take extra choline supplements may mitigate the negative impact that viral respiratory infections, including COVID-19, can have on their babies, according to a new study from researchers at the Department of Psychiatry and Obstetrics and Gynecology, University of Colorado, Ann Schultz Medical Campus. And by the way, choline is a B vitamin. I always suggest people take it with inositol in equal amounts, 500 milligrams of each. And that's the latest in health and nutrition. And we are 24 minutes into our program. Now, we're going to take a break. When we come back from our break, I'm going to play you a clip from this reporter talking about, 5G, and then I'll do a commentary on it, and we'll have our guest on, and I'd like for her to give us her perspective on this, and because we've got to start fighting back. Everyone else is kind of laid back, and it can't be that bad, and, it's going to be great when in 4 seconds, you can get what information you need over your computer. And I don't mind if all my electronics in the house are recording everything I say and everything I do. I have nothing to hide. Yeah. Well, be that cavalier, and you'll see what happens when they come knocking on your door and you have no choice. You have to take the coronavirus vaccine. I will not take the coronavirus vaccine. I'd rather leave America than take it. I won't take it. It's that simple. But how many people are going to stand up to authority? Are the people protesting this in a person's, and by the way, I'll tell you how, I don't want to get distracted, but I looked into this, and it's worse than most people think. What they did to this gentleman who should never have been arrested, and certainly not at gunpoint. So, and I believe all those officers should be held equally liable for his death. But then again, I believe the police need to be held liable for so much institutional racism and bigotry. More on that on a separate program. Back in a moment, where a reporter for NBC is telling you what you should know about 5G. Oh, and it's all pro 5G.
Cell phone towers are slowly popping up around Kern County, but it's leaving some people who live here worried about their health.
And 17's Karen Waugh has traveled around the county trying to find out if you should actually be concerned.
From the mountains of Tehachapi to the edge of the Mojave Desert, the fear of impending 5G cell towers is spreading among small Kern County communities. Some believe it's a question of life or death. So the question is, how big of a health concern does 5G actually pose? And are companies putting the lives of residents at risk just for faster wireless service? We're starting our investigation in Boron. Population 2,300. It's a desert town on the southeast corner of Kern County.
It's not the big city. We don't have the stresses, the crime rate. We don't have the gangs. We don't have... It's a nice place to raise your kids.
Earlier this month, a Verizon 5G cell tower was put up about 1,000 feet from the high school.
Everybody's kids either have gone to the school, go to the school, or play football in our community.
So what is 5G?
Right now, if you were to download a 2-hour movie, it would take maybe a few minutes. With the 5G technology in place, it'd be less than 20 seconds.
What do you say to those people who say, we don't need 5G, 4G is enough?
The future's here. I mean, it's not only for our viewing pleasure and movies and things like that, but we start thinking about other technologies like autonomous driving.
In short, 5G has 100 times the capacity as 4G, explains Nick Points, an expert in wireless technology at ARC in Bakersfield.
As far as I'm concerned, that's why we don't live in the big city. So we don't need that.
The Littlefields fear the high school's proximity to the cell tower could increase the risk of cancer for kids in the community, including their 7-year-old Jacob.
There's other locations that you can put those towers.
They could have put it, where there's nobody.
Or put it up higher.
Some may call their concerns extremist, but the Littlefields are not alone.
One here at the equestrian.
In April, AT&T proposed 7 cell towers in Tehachapi.
So this is our backyard view. I mean, we have...
One would stand about 100 feet from the Bentley's window in Bear Valley Springs. Dozens of residents have teamed up in opposition.
There's just not a lot of research out there to be able to say that this is safe, not only today but down the road. And I think there's a great deal of concern about that.
From advocating, from forming this group, what is your ideal outcome? What do you hope happens?
We have almost 1,000 signatures from our community asking that these towers be stopped at this point.
So where does the fear of 5G come from? The research is conflicting. Some studies raise alarm around 5G.
This is from the Environmental Health Trust. The effects include cancer risks.
And some reports say wireless towers are harmless. In 2018, research by the American Cancer Society noted some people have expressed concern that living, working, or going to school near a cell tower might increase the risk of cancer or other health problems. At this time, there is very little evidence to support this idea. But in 2014, the World Health Organization noted cell phone use has been widespread for only a couple decades, not long enough for studies to conclude whether it could be linked to cancer. A recent investigation by the New York Times traces the fear of 5G back to Russian propaganda. Russia Today, or RT America, is a news show linked to inciting warnings.
RT America came out saying that 5G is causing, it's harmful, causes birth defects, brain tumors, cancer, and like, you know, from the other side of it, you know, there's experts saying that no, that's absolutely false.
However, in Russia, 5G cell towers are widespread.
As other countries, you know, go into 5G, it's just going to open up medical advancements. It's going to open up, you know, like autonomous driving, the Internet of Things. So I think there's a race to causing distraction on one side so someone else can get a leg up on the other.
Research has also stated the higher frequencies of 5G are actually less harmful, less likely to penetrate through the skin and brain. But the little fields are still hesitant.
Radiation is never going to be safe. Not even a little bit is okay, or is it safe?
Besides health concerns, the Bear Valley Springs group is worried about aesthetics.
It's hard to imagine that a home that we've built that has a view out our backyard, potentially looking at a 70-foot tower, hard to imagine that will not make it both difficult if we should decide to sell our property, and it will impact the value of this property.
California recently has been faced with the conflict of advancing to 5G or maintaining beauty standards. In January, in a lawsuit between T-Mobile and San Francisco, the state Supreme Court ruled that local governments can limit or even ban wireless towers for aesthetic purposes.
My concern is that they're moving too quickly on this whole project. There are a lot of questions, and they haven't been answered.
Until more research is done, there will be both sides of the argument. Some who continue to fear for their health, and some who believe the fear is irrational. But for now, I'm Karen Hua in Bear Valley Springs, 17 News.
Okay, so if you listen to that and you're a reasonable person, you would assume that 5G is probably not harmful. And after all, the American Cancer Society and the World Health Organization, they say there's nothing there. And this is an NBC affiliate. I'd like to respond to this reporter. If someone in the audience would please send the reporter my response and the documentation, both documentary documentation and the 11 articles that Richard Gill and myself have authored, all scholarly articles, all fully referenced and footnoted. This is entitled Rampant Media Bias About 5G Technology. By now, the rollout to install and launch 5G wireless technology in order to activate the Internet of Things seems unstoppable. This is not because the telecommunications industry and the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, have proven its safety for humans, animals, and the environment. They have not. It is not because the mainstream media has aired original and confirmatory investigations. It has not. It is not because anyone on the President's Scientific Advisory Council, the FCC, the EPA, or the National Cancer Institute have come forward to present a comprehensive examination of the thousands of peer-reviewed studies on the full range of electromagnetic frequency risks. They have not been undertaken. Again, none of this has been performed. If any of these efforts have been thoroughly ventured, the precautionary principle would be advised and enacted. Rather, we take our advice from the actual science, the tens of thousands of published studies and scientists who advise for a global moratorium to be executed. In the absence of the federal government's and the telecommunication industry's integrity, it is left to the nation's cities, towns, and counties to mobilize and enact local moratoriums against the launch of 5G in their communities. One Connecticut town, Easton, has made this effort and has banned 5G rollout. Last month, the town unanimously passed a cease and desist resolution, quote, until such technologies have been proven safe to human health and the environment through independent research and testing, end quote. Easton's citizen activism against telecommunication giants, multi-billion-dollar public relations machinery and its allies in the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, is an example of what happens when the mainstream media abrogates its civic duties to protect the public. and all the large media networks and publications such as the New York Times, the Washington Post, are accomplices in this massive cover-up over 5G's health risks and likely devastating environmental outcomes after the technological structure is fully implemented. Even small local stations, in our opinion, have been captured by the telecommunications industry's 5G propaganda. NBC's affiliated station KGNET in Kern County, California, aired a segment that you just heard about small towns actively trying to halt the installation of 5G towers in their backyards, even within very close proximity to schools. It is an example of journalism, in our opinion, at its worst, that sets up a biased scenario of the pro-5G pronouncements of the American Cancer Society, the World Health Organization, the New York Times, pitted against the concerns of just average citizens. Missing from the segment are voices of any among the tens of thousands of qualified scientists not beholding to conflicts of interest with wireless corporations who oppose 5G. And this is a typical case of the media conflating the deeper humanitarian and environmental issues that should bother everyone about the new generation of electromagnetic frequency radiation. The message is that we should listen to the experts, the professional institutions, and not residents who have done their homework about 5G's dangerous risks. Even worse, KGET retrieves an old red herring of fake news that the 5G scare is Russian propaganda in order to play the Make America Great Again card. If KGET's program host and reporter had actually performed real due diligence rather than take its talking points from the telecommunications industry, they would have aired a completely different story that would have been informative and factual and empowering. Instead, they would have discovered that the dangers of 5G EMFs radiation will contribute to the following health disorders and diseases. Now, the list I'm going to share is from Dr. Professor Martin Pall, P-A-L-L. He's a professor emeritus of biochemistry and medical sciences at Washington State University. He is also an outspoken critic, and he has taken his distinguished reputation forward to congressional hearings to present why 5G installations are going to be in everyone's backyard, and they shouldn't be. What does the actual science show? Lowered fertility. 5G alters the structure of the testes and ovaries, lowers sperm count and the number of egg follicles, it increases spontaneous abortion, and lowers the levels of 3 sex hormones. There are neurological and neuropsychiatric effects: insomnia, fatigue, depression, headaches, cognitive dysfunction, anxiety, loss of memory. Animal studies have shown that electromagnetic frequencies produce major changes in brain structure, which is likely happening to everyone who has extensive daily exposure to EMFs. There's cellular DNA damage, single and double DNA breaks and oxidative DNA bases. These can cause cancer and mutations in the sexual germlines. There is apoptosis. The electromagnetic frequencies contribute to the programmed cell death that in turn leads to reproductive and neurodegenerative disorders. There's oxidative stress, free radical damage that has been associated with numerous health conditions: cancer, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, myocardial infarction, stroke, chronic inflammation, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, cellular aging, and death. There's endocrine effects. Every hormonal system in your body is adversely affected by EMF exposure. And then cancer. There are 35 separate scientific reviews of the body of peer-reviewed literature proving that there is evidence that electromagnetic frequencies increase carcinogenesis and promote and progress tumor development and contribute to metastasis. Now, if the American Cancer Society and its entire scientific review have not seen these, our office would be happy to send you the peer-reviewed literature on cancer and electromagnetic frequencies, since you seem to be clueless. Each of the things I just mentioned are medical conditions which have been thoroughly studied. There's no doubt and there's no debate on it. Worldwide, independent doctors and researchers studying electromagnetic frequency biological effects confirm there is overwhelming evidence to support them. Other medical conditions that are less researched but are likely associated with EMF exposure: cardiac effects, tachycardia, bradycardia, arrhythmias, and abnormal heart palpitations. Early onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. In recent years, and in parallel with increased electromagnetic frequency exposure, signs of symptoms associated with Alzheimer's is being observed in people aged 30 and younger. ADHD and autism. The epidemic in ADHD and autism witnesses that younger generations are becoming victims, and it could be even in late prenatal and early postnatal EMF exposure. Now, why would a young person be acceptable to look at? Because they live with their cell phones and their tablets. Some of them even sleep with it beside their heads. Citizens are completely correct to be concerned over 5G rollout. Clearly, there's a huge body of information that KGET and other stations have at their disposal. Unfortunately, we believe these stations are so beholden to the telecommunications industry, like Verizon, for example, that we should not expect anything to change. Therefore, each of us must become citizen activists and express her or his displeasure directly to the one-sided 5G-friendly media whenever misinformation regarding EMF safety is aired to the public. This is posted on prm.fm, and we also have several outstanding under oath testimonies from medical doctors and scientists about the dangers of 5G. None of this information has been shared in the mainstream media. That said, now let's go over and welcome our guest, who is concerned about 5G, but also concerned about your freedom of choice over your body. Her name is Elizabeth Glass, and she is a progressive Democratic candidate running for the New York Senate seat in District 27 in Manhattan, which includes the East and West Villages, Stuytown, Chelsea, Hell's Kitchen, Times Square, and parts of Midtown. And she is challenging the current 8-year incumbent, Brad Holliman. New Yorkers might remember that Holliman was the sponsor for the bill that mandated vaccination for all children to attend both public and private schools. He is also a supporter of the New York Senate Bill S. 7919 that has passed in March of this year that granted Governor Cuomo full executive powers that are almost dictatorial. Elizabeth is running on a grassroots contingent-based platform that focuses on tackling the state's fiscal deficit, a broken healthcare system run by corporate interest, and restoring vaccine exemptions, opposing the rollout of 5G wireless technology, and is in restoring civil rights. Nice to have you with us today, Elizabeth.
Gary, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you.
Elizabeth, there are several issues I'd like for you to cover, and I feel we must address New York Senate Bill 7919 that gave Governor Cuomo far more executive powers that should be allowed any governor. And this bill was quickly passed around that time that the COVID virus was starting to hit New York City. So please describe the nature of this bill and the powers it awards Cuomo outside of any oversight or review by the state's legislative body.
Right. Thank you, Gary. It passed on March 2nd, 2020, and it passed in the middle of the night, and most people don't even know about it. And it gives Governor Cuomo unlimited powers. He can basically do anything he wants in, quote-unquote, the name of public health. So it suspends all laws in the event of a disaster. So it's a real problem. It's unconstitutional, in my opinion. So you're talking about 5G. The problem that New Yorkers have, and if you drive around, you'll see the towers everywhere, is that one of the things that he did, I believe with 7919, he has prevented people from being able to organize and fight the 5G rollout. Because it's basically New York is a dictatorship under Cuomo right now.
Well, I believe that he should be held accountable for the unfortunate deaths in nursing homes from allowing people who were diagnosed with COVID-19 to go into hard nursing homes. If you are elected, will you make it an effort to bring to the attention of every member of the legislature in Albany that Cuomo should be held accountable for that?
Absolutely. New York State represents 6% of the American population, but 30% of the COVID deaths in the United States were New Yorkers. And people will say, well, it's more densely populated, mass transit, but those factors don't explain such a huge discrepancy. I mean, I can speak on a personal level. I'm 51, my father's 86. We had people die every day during, because we're lifelong New Yorkers. There's so many people passed away. It's absolutely heartbreaking what happened in New York. So, yes, I will definitely fight to ascertain what happened. Why did this happen? We need to find out so it doesn't happen again.
If there's nothing legally can be done, at least you could do an investigation
exactly.
to show that he is morally responsible for the deaths of thousands upon thousands of people, and he should be held accountable in the public opinion for that. Also, the New York Bar Association just released its statement that a vaccine against the coronavirus is, once it's approved, and it's going to be fast-tracked, it should be mandatory for every single person living in New York State, regardless of their objections. So will you give us your word, I want your word, that you will fight to see that this is not done? And by the way, Senator Holloman, your opponent, it looks like he's going to be a big supporter of this. So will you challenge the other legislators not to make the pharmaceutical companies and Anthony Fauci able to have a group of experimental animals? I mean, we're human beings, and we're going to be treated like we're lab rats, to give everyone in New York State a mandatory vaccine.
Yes, I 100% believe in medical freedom. In fact, my opponent, Brad Hoylman, is the reason that we don't have a choice in New York State to whether or not to vaccinate. He was the sponsor of the repeal of the religious exemption. Prior to June 13th of 2019, New York had a religious exemption. You could opt out if you chose to do so. Now we no longer have that choice. And just to clarify, the Bar Association made that, they issued that statement, I think it was on May 18th, or last week, but that was really Cuomo. That was really Cuomo saying that in a more politically clever way.
Are you worried that Governor Cuomo may go forward with contact tracing for the COVID virus? And for listeners who are not familiar with contact tracing, explain it and what it would entail and how would it affect our daily lives, attending school, our jobs, and does Holloman support contact tracing?
Yes, because Hoylman, he voted for S7919. He is with Cuomo on this contact tracing, which would, my campaign page has a lot of information on this, because if you do a Google search or a DuckDuckGo search, you will not find accurate information about what contact tracing really is and how really frightening it truly is. It's unconstitutional. George Orwell could not have pictured this in his worst nightmare. It's basically they're laying this out now. They're starting to do it right now in New York, and there's a bill to do it on a federal level. But it involves, contact tracers. They're going to surveil everyone through your phone, and if they feel like you've come into contact with someone who had the COVID, even if you don't have any symptoms, you have to socially isolate, and if you are not able to do so, Cuomo has these isolation facilities. And and if you only have one bathroom in your home and they feel that you cannot successfully separate as a family, if you have a family, many people, and you only have one bathroom, they have the right to forcibly remove someone from the home, even a child. And I talk about this on my campaign page, Facebook.com/glassforsenate, and it's gotten like tens of thousands of views because people don't believe me, but I'm like, this is true. This is it's really frightening what's happening right now, and I'm trying to just bring awareness to it, to the issue. Okay. Even for people in my district and throughout the state as well. Finally, this. Oh, but one more thing I have to say about S7919. There's a bill A10449104449. us that will take away Cuomo's power. So if there's something that people want to do as New Yorkers, they can contact their state rep and demand that their state assembly person, that their state senator support that bill. Because what's happening in our state, and of course you know about the rioting that's going on, our state is, New York City is pure anarchy right now. If they are unhappy with the status quo, then they should insist that their state reps support that bill.
Good. And give us the name of the bill again.
Sure. It's sponsored by David DePietro. It's A10449. There's only an assembly bill, so that is how we stop this. There's no other way, because until April of 2021, Cuomo is a dictator, and as we've seen in New York, this is what's happening right now. I care very much about 5G, and that's a huge issue, but it's getting, kind of blurted out by these other, monsters.
I hope that you have an opportunity to share your information to help you out. We will send you all 11 articles that we have written on 5G, plus 4 award-winning documentaries on vaccines, 51 articles on vaccines, all fully referenced, fully scientifically cited, showing that we've been lied to about every vaccine, so you can prepare yourself. At least you will have qualified information that is objective and honest, and that way you can share that with your legislative friends. And if you ever want to bring together, if you get elected in Albany, we have a whole lot of experts that we can bring up there on any issue to challenge the power base of ALEC and the other people that control Albany. Elizabeth, thank you very much. Elizabeth Glass, we wish you all the best. Give us your website, please. Give us your website.
Oh, well, right now it's my Facebook page. It's an open Facebook page. Everything has been changing so much, so it's just more easy to update Facebook page. It's facebook.com/glass, GLASS 4 FOR Senate, SENATE. And I'm on Twitter and I'm on Instagram, and because of COVID, I have developed a large social media presence. But and it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for having me on. Big fan.
All the best to you in your effort.
Okay, thank you so much.
Elizabeth Glass, we wish her well because she went on the record. She was honest, or at least we hope that she is honest, and she's going to fight on the public's behalf, not special interest groups' behalf. In the next 2 minutes, and tomorrow I'm going to play a couple more of these videos for you, but I just want to give you a couple of the latest updates. This is from Colorado State University. Using riboflavin, that's a B complex, and ultraviolet light reduces SARS-CoV-2 pathogens in plasma and whole blood. Quote, scientists who do not yet know if severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 or SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, can be transmitted by blood transfusions. But given the unknowns around this new pathogen, researchers at Colorado State University use existing technologies to show that exposing the coronavirus to riboflavin and ultraviolet light reduces pathogens in human plasma and whole blood products. The study, entitled Pathogen Reduction of SARS-CoV-2 Virus in Plasma and Whole Blood Using Riboflavin and Ultraviolet Light, is published in the current issue of PLOS One, a highly respected medical journal. And the postdoctoral fellow in the Department of Biomedical Sciences at the university led the team on this. So it's a natural, non-toxic way of approaching the COVID and helping. That's one piece of new information. And also, from Medical Life Sciences comes a new study showing specific immune suppression leads to severe COVID-19 disease. And what it's saying in here is that the changes that occur in our human immune system responds to COVID-19 determine whether the individual develops moderate or severe illness. Why is this important? And that's a good study because it once again goes to what we've been saying. Build up your immune system, vitamin D, vitamin C, selenium, a healthy plant-based diet, juicing, exercise, stress management. That means that even if you come in contact with the virus, it will not have the same impact upon you in all likelihood as it would someone who does not work upon their immune system, doesn't even know about their immune system, doesn't care about a good diet, and they're far more susceptible. And the older someone is, the less healthy their diet generally is. And people in nursing homes have one of the worst diets in the world, and that's why we have to use this information. Your immune system is your great defender, and the establishment doesn't want any information going out about your immune system. It's only about a drug or a vaccine, because that's where the money is. You know, it's amazing. We've seen a coup d'etat in the United States in the last 3 years, an attempt, almost succeeded, and now they're doing this to us. Instead of using what we can and using what scientists and physicians and therapists have used for a long time to help with other conditions, including the flu, instead, we don't want to know any of that. All we want to do is make sure that everybody has to take a vaccine or a drug when it comes out. More on this tomorrow. Thank you all for listening. And tonight, 7 p.m., Progressive Commentary, Professor Henry Giroux, one of the smartest people on the planet. 7 o'clock, go to prn.fm. Have a nice day, everyone.